Welcome everybody to this week's Dissecting Design. We are taking a look back at Overlord, one of the many attempts at streamlining or simplifying a real-time strategy game. Overlord came out following the success of Minion on the GameCube, which brought this idea of managing squads, or in Pikmin's case the Pikmin, without the need of a real-time strategy interface. And I remember when I first played the Wii, or was looking at footage of it, and I started thinking about how you could design a strategy-like title without the bloat and more the micromanagement of the genre. And Overlord as a series did manage to capture that, along with being a really great example of a game that's greater than the sum of its parts. And we're going to be looking at the first Overlord today, but there are several others. There's Overlord Raising Hell, which is the expansion of this. There's Overlord 2, and then there is the hack and slash game that we don't talk about. And while Overlord 2 definitely has more in terms of gameplay and design, it kind of lost, I think, some of the magic of the first game. Now I'm going to load things up from here so we can start seeing what the story is. And that is one of our minions, and you'll be seeing a whole lot of them in this play. But let's just skip over that if I can. There we go. And it looks like I'm going to have to make things a little bit louder. It's kind of hard to get the volume just right. So the story of Overlord, and what makes it very different from other games, is that we are playing as the bad guy. This basically Sauron-esque kind of character who's trying to take back over the world from the good heroes who banished him years ago. And to aid us, we have our minions, which look very gremlin-esque. Similar to Pikmin, the various minions come in different colors, which in turn affect what they can be used for, and what will and how they'll solve puzzles. Now I'm playing this on the PC, but you can also have this on the consoles, and it comes with gamepad support. There we go. Let me set this back up here. Get back here, you. And you can also kick them as well. Now, one of the reasons why I started this from here is I want to briefly talk about one of the elements of Overlord that I do like, that I like to see more games handle, as we've talked about. And that is the idea of the trophy room. So we have our little jester there. So our base of operations here, this acts as the trophy room, and if you miss that term, the trophy room is basically the idea of having an in-game representation of your achievements. As we get further in, the game will allow us to upgrade, and it makes it a lot nicer and adds more functionality to it. But let's wrap up the intro here, and we'll be talking again in a few minutes once I have an army of minions to show. Alright, so we're a little bit further into the intro here. As you can see, my minions are actually wearing some clothes. One of the more interesting aspects of Overlord that I did like, at least above the other kind of, I guess, real, I'm not sure what we'll call them, strategy action games, is that they can pick up items, be it helmets, weapons, whatever, which in turn will enhance their abilities and improve them. It also gives them a little bit more personality. Oh, you can see he's very happy. And it raises their stats. If you just saw that 151%, that shows that my minions are basically operating at 150% capacity. Controlling them is done at least with a keyboard and mouse. Left sends them out, right pulls them back, and you can also kind of sweep them. Now the game space itself is open world, but you are limited based on what you can do, depending upon what minions you have and how many. So right now we're just going to break all these damn pumpkins. And as time goes on, again, we'll unlock different groups. And we are limited by how many we can have at one time. Oh, look, they're wearing pumpkins. In one of my plays of the game, I managed to keep one minion alive for the entire length of the game. In order to distinguish him, I gave him the crown that you get from the first boss fight, and I managed to just get him alive somehow. It wasn't that easy either. Now, as you can see, you can attack with your Overlord here, but he's not the best fighter. He's more of the commander, not the warrior. Come on, guys, hurry up. And over here you can see where the other minions will pop out of. And every time we enhance stuff and bring it back to our tower, that's how we will grow it and create more of that trophy room interface that I talked about. So it's going to let us take more people. But first we need to go back and look at the heart. And I think this will be a great place to start talking more again about that trophy room. So talk to you all in a second. Alright, just a quick part here. So the Jester right now, as he's talking, is basically running through random achievements that we've passively earned by how we've played. By beating bosses or keeping minions alive, we'll get different little titles here. Again, it's nothing too in-depth, but it's just a way of providing a little bit more of an achievement within the game space itself. Now, I completed the first quest of the game, and eventually we'll be able to make this place a lot more homely, I guess you could say. But I think from here, we'll talk a little bit more about the story once we get to the first town. So, I'll talk to you all in a second. While my little minions here are getting drunk, we can briefly go over the story and what kind of helps set Overlord a little bit different from the other games at the time. So the game takes place again in a fantasy world, with the idea is that the heroes who help basically banish the Overlord basically became corrupted by their exploits and adventures. And now it's basically the whole idea of beware when fighting monsters lest you become a monster yourself. And so each one of the heroes has basically become essentially what the opposite of what they've been. So the first boss, who's supposed to be like a hobbit, Frodo Baggins kind of hero, is now this just massive overweight glutton. Or the paladin, who was supposed to be, uncorruptible, now has, I think, like a succubus mistress and stuff like that. Again, it's a very clever riff on the whole, again, good versus evil story. Now, with that said, though, Overlord definitely runs into some tonal or morality issues. Like, this is the way to the Paladin's quest. And we're free to basically explore as long as we have the minions that we can access from. Again, we can be as mean as we want. But getting back to the whole morality part of the game, one of the issues that the game runs into is that it doesn't really go, I guess, full evil in a sense. You still feel more like an anti-hero rather than a full-on villain, because you can kill normal civilians, but it's better in the long run to keep them alive. And the game goes out of its way to tell you the fact that you're fighting corrupted good guys. You're not fighting, virtuous heroes in the same way as you did in Dungeon Keeper. But for those of you who played it, I'm curious what you think about the tonal change in terms of story between Overlord 1 and Overlord 2. In number 2, it basically comes out and says you're fighting an evil empire. So it becomes a lot less about you being bad in that manner of speaking. We can send them in there. They'll get all drunk and all that. But we'll talk more about I guess some of my gameplay nitpicks with the title as we get to the first boss fight. So I'll talk to you all in a minute. Alright, so where I'm at right now is the real, I guess, first major quest of Overlord. And this is going to take us to actually fighting the first boss. And I think this is a good time to talk a little bit more about the general, I guess, complaints or challenges of playing a game like this. Overlord, as with games of the genre, can be a little bit tricky to control. Now, right now I'm only using one set of minions, but once we start getting the other colors, it can become a lot challenging to keep everything organized. Many of the enemies and bosses are designed around having one super attack that if you don't pull your minions away from in time, you're going to die, or you're going to lose a whole lot of them. Now, right now, we're also going to be getting the second, I believe, minion type. Those are the reds. They are your ranged spellcasters. And we'll start to mess with the idea of having to control multiple types. Like right now, I have it selected as all. But we will be going from browns, reds, and so on. Now, another thing that I didn't talk about in the game is the fact that you can find upgrades and permanent features as you play. You just take them back to your main place. Oh yeah, and we can also sometimes ride animals, or that may be in the second one if I remember. As you can see, they're still picking up the goods. And right now we're trying to get to our boss fight. Oh yes. And I think the game does a good job of trying to play with the fantasy stereotypes. Come on. Kill him. Now, another issue with games of this kind when you're controlling AI minions is that if you don't stay close enough to them, they will kind of get stuck on objects and get lost. I had one case where I sent a group back to the main base and they didn't know how to get back. So my choice was to either go all the way back and grab them, or just keep going with a shortened minion pool. Die. No, get back here, boys. So this is one of the many treasures that we'll find. We'll also find totems and upgrades for the tower, which in turn will change how it looks. Where are you guys? Come on. Somebody should be grabbing better weapons. Alright, he's grabbing me some gold. There we go. There's also no way to really see just what exactly this gear is doing to my guys. It says that they're better, but we don't actually get any in-game representation. But then again, I think that the reason is that we're not really supposed to care about our minions. It's more about, hey, they're just here as disposable fodder, let them go out and kill or be killed. Now this first area is relatively quick. Hopefully. It has been a few years since I played this one. Yeah, that opens up the door, and then we can keep moving forward. And as I was saying a few minutes ago regarding the morality of the game, one of the, I guess, slight rubs that when you get to the final part of Overlord, I guess spoiler alert for those of you who didn't play it, the game basically reveals, oh, it was all a bad guy this whole time that you've been fighting. I think that kind of robs a game of the fact that it would have been nice if the heroes just would have gone evil on their own, instead of trying to say, oh, this was all just done by another bad guy. Now, gameplay-wise, now this is when I'm using the scroll action. This is sort of direct control.
Get us out of here! It's the wheel over there!
Yeah, come on.
Those halflings say they're going to serve us to Melvin. Oh,
Get in there.
I don't want to be lunch.
And there are sections later in the game where you have to use this direct control in areas where they can die if you mess up, such as over waterfall, or I'm sorry, water areas or fire, stuff like that.
Brought a load of food down here. You looking for it?
Come on, let's get back to
Come on, get in there. Break it. There we go. And the reason why we're picking up this gold now is that this will be used for upgrades back at the tower when the time comes. Hey. Go away, you. Now we should be getting close to the boss or getting the red minions. It's been a while since I played this one. Die. But despite the control issues or the somewhat cumbersome feel, the game never becomes completely unwieldy in my opinion. Now we should be getting to some more interesting parts, yeah. So we need to get the 2 spokes. Oh yes, this part. And again, we get these portals open up. So this is a part where we have to, come on, deal with the spawning hobbit holes, I guess if we can call them. Come on, get in there. There's one. And again, this is where it becomes just a lot easier to control them semi-manually. There's one. There's 2. And I believe we get something for breaking this pumpkin. Now, if I didn't do that, they would be spawning halflings as I'm trying to break this. There we go, we got a totem. And the totems act as permanent upgrades. But we just need to get it back to our main base. Or back to a portal. So we'll do this, and then what I will do is cut the video right to the boss, so we can show off the boss, and then we'll probably do all my final thoughts and then call it. The game still holds up pretty well. Come on guys, speed it up. There's our little warp pad back. And these totems can either give us more mana, more health, or even increase our minion pool. There we go. Now this becomes a major part once we start getting the different minion types, because you will have to balance saying how many browns do I want, how many blues, reds, and so on. But of course many of these guys will not make it through to the end, especially when we fight the boss. Sometimes the camera gets stuck based on what they're doing. Come on guys. Come on. See? The kind of example of things getting a little stuck there. Come on, get off. Don't know what that was all about. But anyway, there we go. But we'll cut things here, and ideally we'll be at the boss for our next section. Alright everybody, so you can see that giant guy in the background. That is going to be our first boss, Melvin the Halfling. Also just exiting out for 1 second just to make sure that I am recording. Don't want to spend a few minutes talking with a black screen. But, as I was saying in the last section, all the main bosses in this game are basically corrupted heroes, which is a nice touch. But it's going to be a little tricky fighting him, and you'll see why, hopefully in a second.
Melvin ain't so small now.
Look at that guy. Get him. Use the Peekman strategy. Alright, so now comes where things get a little tricky. So I'm gonna probably do his roll attack. Come on. And this is where you can lose a whole lot of minions. There's something you don't see every day. Yeah, I'm gonna lose probably a few of them here. It's just very hard to keep your guys alive while he is just going around like that. Get him, team. Revenge. When we get the blue minions, they can actually keep our guys alive. Oh, jeez. Yeah, if you're trying to keep like a specific minion alive here, it is very hard when he's doing this attack. Almost got him. Goodbye. Well, if you insist. Yeah. Oh.
That is concentrated evil, sire. It accumulates in those of an especially evil disposition. Now you've dealt with Melvin. You should endeavor to find your fire.
And what? First off, you have one minion pick up his crown, and that's how I kept this guy alive. I made sure that our crown guy was always going to be alive as best as I could. He was my second in command of my army. And when I played it, it was not easy. So right now the game's going to get us to the point where we can actually unlock the red guys, our flame dudes. Now there's of course also the idea of, oh, here they are. Okay. There's also getting a mistress who's basically your evil partner back at the tower. In the second game, it became a major part of the gameplay.
Look after them and they'll look after you. Just like one big evil family.
And this is where the controls get a little bit trickier, because a lot of the times you're going to have to assign your reds to a spot, to a flag. So let me see if we can do that here.
You can swap them at the gate.
Put them in there.
I think you should have a little practice, sire. Select
Oop.
your reds. Reds! Now sweep your reds into that fire barrier over there.
Now the reds are not good in a direct confrontation, so you have to use your
This is red rifle, sire.
browns as backup. But like, here's a part where
Master, summon enough reds to carry it to the
we need to grab the heart, so that becomes a mainstay of our tower.
reds.
Get him.
Browns. Reds. Browns.
Now we need a few more reds.
Reds.
Now I believe in this game we get the option to set basically a stamp on the ground that makes sure that they will not move, and it's basically used as a form of creating like an impromptu turret. So right now we're just grabbing what we need.
Browns.
Alright, so we gotta get rid of our browns.
Browns. Reds. Reds. Oh.
Goodbye, guys. I think that should be enough. But once you get the blue means you can revive characters who have recently been killed, it becomes a lot easier to keep them alive. Come on, boys, get in there.
Reds.
Yeah, so we just want to keep the reds like really close. Later in this game, especially in the second Overlord, you'll get the ability to pick up the flag and move them around, setting up essentially defensive lines. Get in there, you. And there's our crown, the brown, right there.
Browns.
All we have to do is get them across there, and we are good.
Ah, the perfect.
So here's where we're going to learn about the defense controls.
Recall your reds from the red hive and commence the fry and die, sire.
So we're going to set them to target right here, and they're just going to be raining death from above on our halfling friends. There we go. Run. Run, I say. Alright, get him. Come on, team. Come on, camera. Again, sometimes it gets a little finicky like that. But what I will do is I'm going to finish grabbing this and sending it back to our home base, and then we'll head back to the tower for my final thoughts on the series. So I'll talk to you all in a minute. Before we get to that part, just a quick addendum. This is what I was talking about, was setting up defensive positions. So I can actually control that flag, move them around, but they will not move from that position. So the idea is they're going to go. We can pull one more back. And I want the rest of my guys to go down there and turn that wheel. And you can set up guards for each type of minions. So they're just going to stand there and snipe. And advanced play is going to involve setting up these choke points using specific minions and making sure that they hold the line, because you don't want reds to be in direct confrontation. So once that's done, that sets that up. And then we can go like that. But if I want to do a guard or a flag for everybody, very simple. And then I have to select it or target it to then maneuver. So you can do this also as a way of creating control groups. So let's say a combination of reds and browns. The reds will snipe the enemies while the browns will hopefully keep anything from getting close to them. But that's it for this quick addendum. I'll see you all back at the tower. Alright, so we're back in the tower. Like I said, eventually we'll be able to customize a tower, add additional rooms, and do crazy stuff like that. In the second game, the tower also acts as unlocking new research and abilities for your various minions. But this is where I can kind of talk about my final thoughts on Overlord. Like I said, this is a great game that's greater than the sum of its parts. I really like the theme of being able to essentially be the bad guy. Now, as you can see, one thing I didn't talk about is corruption. Corruption is basically you being extra evil. That's attacking civilians and choosing the bad options. If it's high enough, at the end of the game, you'll get the quote-unquote bad ending, or good ending? It's hard to tell like this. But the game does a really good job of delivering on this theme of controlling units without needing the full RTS controls. And while it doesn't work 100% of the time, it's still a worthy endeavor. And like I said, this is a game that I think holds up still pretty well. And while the second game does add a lot more in terms of gameplay and situations, it kind of loses, I think, the magic of this one. The second game has this whole story that you were teased as a child and you were going to become destined to become the ruler of the land. And it kind of gets lost, I think, in its own mythos, compared to this where you're just the bad dude who wants to take over. And I love to see games that try to go more with the, I guess, evil route. And while this one does tend to lean too much towards anti-hero, like I said, I thought it was a really great twist that the bosses are basically converted or perverted heroes. He's still talking there. And then there's, of course, some more we can do over here. And again, the whole tower basically acting as your form of progress as well as your trophy room was a really great touch. And I always like when games integrate achievements and progression into the game space itself. For those of you who have played both Overlords, again, we won't mention that third one, which one did you like more, the first or the second? Because I think, at least from what I've seen, there's definitely more approval of the first. There's our little gesture there. And of course, we can come down here, we want to fight and practice our
Really in the mood
combat.
to practice your combat skills, sire, then this is the
These are all the enemies we fought so far, but we won't need to do that. So, thank you so much for watching today's Dissecting Design. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you are new, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Check back for daily discussions on game design here and on GameWisdom.com, where we examine the art and science of games, and look for new Dissecting Design pieces every Monday. Also, as one final quick aside, this scene right here also changes as we improve our tower. So just another way of letting the game or letting your progress be visibly seen. But that's all for now. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you all next time. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and come back around 10 Eastern for regular streaming. For a collection of my writings as well as weekly podcasts on game development, be sure to check out game-wisdom.com. Follow me on Twitter at GWBicer for updates throughout the day. And to help support everything that I do, you can find me on Patreon under GWBicer or Game Wisdom. Your donations can help to keep things running, and when we hit some goals, it will mean more content for everyone to enjoy. So, thanks again for watching, and be sure to come back for daily discussions on game design on the Game Wisdom channel.